Welcome to LearnLogicPro.com. Today we're going to look at preferences. So with the Arrange window open, there's a couple different ways to go to preferences. First, you'll notice there's a preference menu button in Logic Pro 8. And if you click there, you have all the preferences. The other way is to click the old school Logic down to Preferences, and the options are the same. So let's go to the new way. And the first one we're going to go on is Global. Now in the global preferences, or preferences in general, this is a means of which to set up Logic and some of the preferences and presets of Logic to open by default. For instance, if I would like my Logic to load up and open up every time with the most recent project I've worked on, that would be a preference, and it is here in the global. Now by default, this is the option, Open Most Recent Project. Now, I'm not a big fan of that. I prefer to, when I launch Logic, I would like it to open from a new project, from a template, so I can get right to creating a new song. If I choose to open up a song afterwards, I can do that by just closing the template window and open Recent, the song that I'm working on. So this is a global preference that I've personally changed, and you may want to look and if it works for you to change it as well. And this is your startup action preference. So inside global, as we go through here, we have the project handling option, editing option, right mouse button does what, opens shortcut, opens tool menu, so you have options for the right click. Now these options are not by default, and only going through these preferences and checking them out will you actually find that some of them may be relevant to what you're doing and what you need. Limit dragging in one direction. Have you ever been in the Arrange window and you're moving regions around and you go up and it goes to the right instead? Well, here you can limit the dragging in one direction. So in the Arrange window, when I move a region up, it doesn't actually nudge to the right or to the left. It goes up, and only one direction can be dragged at once. Okay? And that again is an editing option inside the preferences, and this is going to be in every program, every project you work on. This preference will be relevant. Okay? So instead of going through every single option for time constraints, I'm going to simply go through them a little bit quicker. So cycling is making a loop. You've got a pre-cycle process. You can basically clean that up. You've got a catch. When catching basically means that Logic catches on to a section when you press play. Cap locks keys, enable the cap locks keys to do certain things. The space bar can be a sustain pedal. So if you're using the little keyboard controller with the cap locks, you get some options there, and one of them is to make it a sustain pedal. You've got audio preferences. Now I'm going to talk about this in more detail when we get into audio and audio settings, but these are the preferences for what audio interface you're using, if you're using Pro Tools and so on. But we're going to have a video specifically just about this and latency and how to keep on top of all that. You have preferences for general preferences for audio, everything from the track mode, sample accuracy, even plug-in delay compensation is here. Low latency mode is not checked. You may want to check that and help with the low latency. Latency is essentially kind of like as you add more tracks, some of the tracks may be a little bit slower than others based on the processing power of your computer. Going in and doing some sort of compensation or even low latency mode helps to compensate for more plugins or effects on your computer. And we'll talk about that when we get into the latency section. Sample editor, surround sound options. These are your options for MP3s. So if you want to always bounce your MP3s as 160, now they're all 160. Every time you bounce an MP3, they'll be at least 160, and you can make it go to 320. So you get your preference preset for your MP3 compression. This is your reset messages. Nodes, if you have multiple computers, and you can hook those computers up to gigabit Ethernet, and you can essentially run the processing power or offset some of the processing to other computers. And there'll be a section we talk about nodes specifically. These are all the preferences for MIDI. It's syncing, it's reset messages. Display messages and preferences. We've got here what windows you're dealing with, how many windows, the arrangement of the windows, what the color of the windows are. Again, just preferences for this basic window. We've got score preferences, video preferences, the length, cast resolution, even project settings, which we'll talk about in the settings video. Automation, you can change specific preferences for automation settings, control surfaces. If you're using a hardware piece that allows you to control logic from the hardware piece, you do have preferences for some of those options. Again, you will want to install the control surface in the control surface setup, at which time it'll scan for the device and find it and so on. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Sharing. Now, I love this new preference, okay? I have a .Mac account, which is a Mobile Me account, what they've called it now. And the idea is this. You have these preferences, you have all of these settings, and you may want to take it with you. Or you want to share these preferences to another computer over a network. Or you may want to just back up these preferences. And here in sharing, you have these options, which is great. Because if your computer crashes and you want to make sure that all of these files are backed up to your Mobile Me, you want to make sure that that's backed up. And what I just did is I enabled it. I authorized this computer to be allowed to connect to my .Mac, and it's now backing those items up. And again, this is a great way to make sure you retain all of your settings. So I could even go as far and say, hey, I want to make sure all my channel strip settings, my plugin settings, and my key commands are backed up on my Mobile Me. Bonjour, that's specific for shared data on the local network. Bonjour is the Apple format for two computers over a network or two devices to say hello to each other without you having to do anything. So here you do want to make sure, if you want to save those settings over the local network, you want to have Bonjour selected. So this is the new sharing option that's only available in version 8, and I found it to be a great way to back up all your settings. So I want you to check out these preferences in great detail. Make sure you go through each one, find the options that are specific to your usage and your needs, and Logic will slowly start to change to be an application that is curtailed to all of your specific needs. And that's preferences in Logic Pro 8. LearnLogicPro.com.